I'm Ditta Purvis with Sauna from Finland. Make sure to follow us on our socials at Sauna from Finland. Also, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel here. Today we're talking to Jake Newport, the CEO of Finnmark Sauna. Hello, Jake.
Hi, nice to see you. How are you doing?
Nice to see you too. Before we get started, let's remind everyone about our upcoming event, the World Sauna Forum.
Have you heard about the World Sauna Forum, the most relaxing business event in the world? Over the years, the event has grown into one of the most important forums regarding Finnish saunas. But the event is not just about the Finnish sauna, but rather the global phenomenon of the sauna experience. The World Sauna Forums covers everything you need to know about Finnish saunas, from health benefits to expert insights, hands-on workshops, and networking with sauna professionals from around the world. The World Sauna Forum is filled with unforgettable sauna experiences and new friends. We can't wait to see you in Finland next summer.
So, Finnmark Sauna is a family company. You want to tell us a little bit about that, where it all started?
Yeah, so this whole journey for us here at Finnmark starts about 10 years ago. And at that time, the UK industry, where we started out and where we've built our company, was very much a place where there was a lot of generic pool and spa companies, and their offering was really what a lot of people have tried over the decades, which is a very hot, dry room that a lot of people just tolerate for 10 minutes after a workout, or they force themselves to go and sit into because they think it's good for them. And I was out in Finland and spending a lot of time, a lot of my evenings and weekend times with my colleagues and my friends, going to sauna and cold plunge and enjoying the experience. And I came away from it just thinking, wow, this is so different from everything that we have here in the UK. And, became slowly more and more obsessed with trying to understand why, what have we, what are we doing wrong? My brother at the time, working in high-end hi-fi design with some of the UK's leading hi-fi companies. I said to him, "Look, let's design saunas. Let's try this out." And I was fortunate enough to have some really good friends in Finland who recommended a number of different brands to work with. And to kind of prove the point, a lot of the big brands had no representation here at the time. So we reached out to a lot of brands, started discussing this idea of focusing on delivering authentic sauna experiences and making sure that customers could really enjoy the real deal. And it seems, to our success, that that's what the market wants. They want the real deal. So, 10 years and 40 staff and, now international company later, we continue to be, well, in the UK, the fastest growing and largest company in this space. And it just goes to show,
Right decision.
Yeah, exactly.
How is the market in UK right now? Could you elaborate? Tell us a little bit. How is it going?
We're seeing really strong growth, but we're seeing really strong growth as a result of a snowball that's been gathering snow. So when we started out, we were in a bit of an echo chamber, as you find in a lot of these sort of more niche market areas, and we were shouting about this difference. And there was a few people in this space. I could probably name them on two hands, who were really advocates for trying to say to people, hang on, guys, there's more to this. You might need to kind of think a bit more about the mechanics of the space, the usage of the space, how the space is enjoyed, and combining it with contrast therapy, so going into cold plunges and other treatments. And it's only through this slow transition of information, we would hold events with some of these other people, and they would bring some people, and what we've seen is, over the last decade, is each person discovers a great thing. Let's say you discover a delicious type of chocolate, you'll tell your four closest friends, you've got to try this, and they'll tell their closest friends, you've got to try this. And we're seeing this really strong growth that with people asking the right questions, interested in the right things, and coming to us already qualified. That they know that
What they're
uh,
kind of asking for, know what
exactly.
to, yeah, what they want to do.
Yeah, so, and I'm sure we'll talk about this. When I went to the first World Sauna Forum, I stood up and gave a speech about, you know, that you guys have something amazing, and you really need to shout about it. And obviously, this is why Sauna from Finland exists, and this is, just testament to the good work that's been going on. But I used to be asked questions like, if I pour water on the stones, is that going to cause a fire? I got questions like, isn't sauna a Swedish thing that people do? Like, people just didn't know. And now we get people come to us who are like, I've tried this amazing experience. I love it. I know what it's about. And anecdotally, I've gone to events that are nothing to do with sauna, with, let's say 100 plus people attending, and there's people there talking about, oh, I went to this amazing sauna experience in London, and they're talking about it and saying, well, it's very different from
Uh-huh.
what we've been used to in the past, but it's so much better. And I've just sort of been stood there quietly smiling, going like, yeah, we've
Like, yeah,
played a part in that.
I
That's
know.
great. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's good, and it continues to move in the right direction. We've got part of this evolution has been a lot of those people who loved that experience, wanted to share it. They've gone on to make things like sauna trailer businesses and pop-up saunas around the country. And now we're seeing another wave of people who go, okay, this is a viable business. If you've got capacity for 30 people throughout the day, bums on seats, there's a lot of tickets sold, a lot of snacks and drinks sold. And we're seeing large investments in the commercial sauna space. So one of the projects we did earlier this year and at the end of last year was a circa 70 person capacity, depends how friendly you are. I've seen more than
Hmm.
70 people in there, in Canary Wharf in London. And from what I gather, they're sold out every day. They're really, really busy. So,
That is so great.
and that combines this very large sauna with cold plunges, breath work, relaxation.
Yeah.
And
Uh, and I
people are
was about
taking it
to ask
seriously.
about the cold plunge and the cold immersion. How, if I've understood correctly, it's a big thing in the UK, and it's one of the things that like boosts the saunas as well. And it's like an overall experience. Like it's really integrated into the sauna experience. Is that
Y-
correct? Is that how it is?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that's, convincing somebody that saunaing properly will give you a more relaxed, enjoyable experience was certainly the first step. Convincing people to get into cold water is always going to be a bit more challenging, and usually people say, "Oh, well, I'll just about get under a cold shower," but the reality is when you immerse yourself in cold water, as many passionate sauna fans will know, it's is sometimes easier to commit to getting into cold water than it is to force yourself to stand under a cold shower. And personally, that's my experience. It's one of those things that when you've done it and when you've done it a couple of times, like Finns are sort of brought up with this. You know that you can go
Hmm.
from the Savu sauna straight into the beautiful
To the
lake,
lake
and you'll
and
feel great, and you'll go between the two. It has been a slower transition, but I think once people have tried it, they're like, "Wow, okay, this is like
like
this
you
is
can
like
feel
din-
like this. Like this is how my body
yeah,
can feel like this. Yeah.
yeah." And you end up going, well, it's like having half a meal. It's like having dinner without dessert or something. You kind of feel a little bit unsatisfied if you just go to the hot room after that. So,
Hmm.
and I think that's also been, because of the research on sauna health benefits is often very much tied to people doing full contrast therapy, hot and cold, that they're two industries that are highly complementary. So all the good work that the cold immersion companies have been doing, and the research in cold immersion, combined with the hard work that we've been doing in this industry, has had this mutually beneficial impact. So if we cut to 5 years ago, there wasn't really any cold plunge companies in the market, or they were just sort of starting out. And now it's a huge industry, and there's a lot of players in that space. So I see I see it as very much, people now know if you combine the two, you have this amazing experience, and you can enjoy it longer as well. So, if you just go to the sauna, you might be done after one or two rounds. If you go sauna, cold plunge, normalize, relax, then you start. I've got to go back in now, and you might go 3 or 4 rounds. So yeah, they're highly complementary.
So, according to the recent studies, UK's wellness market is one of the highest growing markets out there right now. What, in your opinion, is the biggest thing that it's driving? Like, what is driving it right now?
Yeah, I mean, this is something we often talk with our podcast guests about, and actually, something that I have to credit Mikkel Arland, who's an author, a journalist, and sort of a well-known advocate for sweat bathing and contrast bathing, and essentially wrote the book in the 70s, I believe, on thermal bathing around the world, which is these are predominantly social spaces. And what we've seen in the UK in the last 30 years, 30 to 50 years, is, as you can see across the world, but predominantly in the UK, is people firstly working far more intensely in very much more isolated environments. By which I mean you're on a computer a lot of the day, so you have a less social contact time. You outside of work, your social spaces have changed. So, you know, 50 years ago, you probably had your local church, your sort of what I call village green preservation societies, sort of the Women's Institute or the local community groups, and the pub. And with this sort of rural to urban migration, a lot of young people now live in cities or suburban environments. The community groups have, slowly as a result of that also died out, and younger people can afford less and less to go to pubs, but also we're far more aware now that you can't be going to the pub every single night. It's not sustainable in terms of positive health outcomes in the long term, and a lot of young people and people of all ages don't want to drink every day. So
And
we've got a
yeah, and
vacuum.
probably a lot of times this the reason why you would go to a pub is not because of the alcohol, it's because of the people.
Exactly,
So we're just trying
exactly.
to find a good way to do that without the alcohol.
Exactly. So there's this vacuum in British culture for a social space that brings people together. And, contrary to popular belief, when we Brits get going, we love a good chat. And I see the way that people go to these community sauna baths and these commercial saunas now. And a lot of it is about connecting with other people. It's about having some wellness time.
Mhm.
Mental health is, without sort of sounding negative, is such a buzzword now in our culture, that people understanding, okay, it's important that I have time to relax and unwind, but also I want to have a space where I can go with people to do something that is positive and constructive, and I can socialize. And one thing, to say that all Finns sit in the sauna in silence, actually, that's not true. I've been in many Finnish saunas where it's been very loud and talkative, and I think that's great. When they're a social space, they're a social space, and that's I think that's excellent and to be commended. But in the UK, I've certainly been to a lot of commercial saunas where it is as talkative as a pub, and the, we Brits, we're very open to, through our colonial heritage and past, we're very open to new cultures and new experiences. We historically had terrible food. People from other cultures brought way better food. We welcome that in, and often we're very, perhaps shy to try something new. But as soon as we've done it, we become big advocates for those things. So a lot of Brits are sort of trying this, going, "Oh yeah, you pour the water on the stones, and you've got the good ventilation." And I've seen people lecturing other people in a sauna in a local spa about what a sauna hat is, and people become evangelists, and they're like,
Mhm.
this is really
Yeah,
great.
like, this is how you should be throwing the load over there, and this is
Of course. And
yeah,
there is a
all
little bit
that.
of that as well. There's a little bit of Brits liking to be like, yeah, I know how this should be done, like, this is the proper way, check this out. But we're also, like with the United States and Norway and Japan, which are all fast growth markets in this industry, we're unburdened by having to do things the way they've always been. And so
Mhm.
there's a level of dynamism that's coming into British sauna culture, which is something weird to say now because I've been such an advocate for Finnish and Baltic and
Mhm.
European sauna cultures, but it's taken on a life of its own. And I think part of the growth as well has been that people are kind of playing around with the idea, and we see, community sauna baths hosting sessions with um, meditation sessions in the sauna, or music, or live performances of
Do you guys have yoga as well, like sauna yoga?
yoga's vanilla compared to some of the stuff these guys are you know, I've heard things like poetry sessions, readings in the sauna. Obviously, people can sing in the sauna, and that's nothing new. I've heard things like life drawing in the sauna. I think the Brits are sort of open to these things, and I think we have um, uh, a lot of inquiries now for people who want saunas, particularly on the commercial side. They want saunas designed around the principles of a Finnish sauna, but they also want to be able to do Aufguss rituals so that they can bring a performance element into it if they want to, and also the ability to potentially do some of the more Baltic inspired whisking rituals and treatments. But so they were looking to use these spaces a bit more hybrid. But because of that openness, it just brings so many different demographics. So your typical Aufguss audience in the UK maybe waits on more the female demographic, because if they want to see a performance Aufguss show. It's a lot more like going to see performance Aufguss is a lot more like, you know, in the UK we have something called Strictly Come Dancing, which is it's like Dancing with the Stars in the United States. Um, this is this old show that's been running a long time, where celebrities get a dance partner and they learn how to dance over the course of several weeks, and it's a competition, and it's got a huge predominantly female audience. And so, with performance Aufguss, you tend to see more of that demographic interested, which is very different to the typical idea of the macho rugby team in a sauna
Mhm.
after their
After
match day.
their match and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, so with it being a bit more dynamic space, that's really helped, I think, with the growth as well.
Yeah, and I think probably some of it might be that because the sauna culture itself is not from the UK, so it's now kind of in the stages where people are trying to, like, what is our sauna culture like? To
Hmm.
combine all these different elements and finding out that, okay, what do we like the most, and what is like, and I feel like that's the best way to go about it, is not to shut down something, like, let's not do Aufguss at all. That's Or let's not throw Lulu at all. It's a matter of, okay, what do we like to do, and how
Hmm.
can we have a space where we can try these different things out? And I think that's great.
Exactly, and we're still very much in that thermal bathing infancy here, and people are playing around with those different ideas. But if I speak personally, um, there are times where I want a quiet, meditative, very Finnish style sauna, and I just want to relax and unwind. And the idea of going to a performance Aufguss at that time, totally not what I want, right? But there are other times where I'm like, yeah, come on, guys, we're gonna go and see this thing. It'll
Yeah.
be a laugh, it'll be a bit of fun. We're gonna enjoy the sauna, but we're also gonna see this weird and wonderful show. And I was at the Alfgus Championships the year before last, and saw um, there was this one that really sticks in my mind was the team. So they have teams and individuals events. They had the teams event with the Japanese contestants, and they did an Alfgus performance in there 200 people in this sauna, huge sauna in Satama in just south of Berlin. And it was so moving that there were 200 people in this sauna and everyone was in tears. And I just looked around because I was welling up, and I just saw a room full of people in tears. And I think there's something about those kind of experiences. It's like going to theatre. Everybody's, but in a very vulnerable sense, and so it is. You get
It's way
some
more
very, very,
intimate than in a big theater.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's very, it's very powerful, and it's one of those things I've sometimes when I try and explain to people the storyline of that Alfka session, and I feel myself sort of welling up again, and I'm like, it was really profound, and I think it's just having the flexibility to say it's not always going to be, you're not always going to want to go to a sauna and be whisked and have a full a banya style treatment or whatever. And I think having that flexibility allows the market to grow and to make the saunas more of a multi-use space.
Yeah, and more accessible to more people. Yeah,
Exactly.
absolutely.
And I think that's another big one. Accessibility. The more that we've built them, the more that people try them and do it quote unquote right. Um, the the more that you have this positive upward spiral. More good saunas means there'll be even more good saunas. There's almost that continuous, no, like the race is on now. People are competing. We've just this big project in Canary Wharf, the ARC project. The number of people who've now contacted us going, "Oh, I want to do something like that, or I want to do something even cooler than that." We now are in this almost a race for people to move into this wellness space and build these types of facilities. And they're all going to continually try and outdo each other and compete. But we're so below the saturation point. In Finland, they say you have 2.5 million saunas and 5 million Finns. So it's a pretty saturated market. But people still build commercial saunas.
Right.
In the UK, we have a population of 80 million. And I don't know the number, but I would say certainly commercially, and certainly if you strip out all of those old school hot boxes with hidden heaters, no stones, ventilation, the old guard, which is slowly phasing out, that we are vastly undersaturated. So there's this huge potential there, and I think we'll continue to grow into that.
A lot of this hype is going on right now, and you're like you said, there's more and more, I guess, demand for these bigger projects and bigger public sauna facilities and everything. But how else would you say that this huge growth in UK right now is showing in Finnmark's business?
We continue to grow very quickly. So we're at 40 staff this year, and we continue to grow and scale the business. So from our side, it keeps us very busy, which is great, and something that is such a nice industry to be in. We're not we're helping people have a more relaxing, enjoyable, healthy life, essentially. And there's David Ahonen from Harvia once said to me, the sauna industry is a pullover industry. And I thought, pullover industry? What's a pullover industry? Is it some sort of commercial phrase that I've not heard of? Is it something to do with businesses? So I said, what do you mean a pullover industry? He said, well, it's the sort of industry where everybody who works in it wears a pullover, not a suit and a tie. And I was like, that's it. It's nice. The team who work here, everybody is super motivated, industrious, really passionate about what they do. There's an overall sort of relaxed nature to it. We're not in suits and ties, and it's professional, but it's relaxed. And I think we've managed to maintain that. We've been very fortunate. We sort of have first mover advantage. We benefit from being the UK point of entry for a lot of the suppliers from Finland, the Baltic states, etc. And we distribute also to the trade as well. So, small sauna builders, and then there's Finnmark, which is this very big company. As we've grown, we realized we can't be every sauna, and we don't really want to be every sauna. We have an amazing network of sauna builders that do all sorts of different things, and some of them have been on our podcast. We've had guests who build sauna trailers or convert horse boxes into saunas, for example. Really unusual things, and things that if I had quadruple the time and quadruple the energy and everything else, it might be something we would entertain. But the reality is that there are other people who are doing an amazing job really passionately and helping grow that. The benefit of the company being the size that it is now means that, I get to do things like have these podcasts where we have guests on and speak to industry thought leaders and get the information out there and help with the education side of it. I get to go to events, and last year, I won't say how many times I was overseas, but every few weeks I was at events, whether that was all across Europe, in the UK, even in the United States, and across continental America. So the UK growth is something that we've benefited from, but we've always consistently reinvested in making sure that it's a better customer experience, a better product, that the education is there first and foremost and continues to be there. And, we have a studio here where we film how-to videos and guides and things like that. And then as we've sort of taken that, the demand internationally has grown. So, a big part of what we're doing this year is opening up our European distribution operation. A lot of customers have been coming to us and saying, yeah, we love what you guys are about. We love the support, the technical knowledge and know-how that you guys have around construction, installation of the products, etc. And we want your support. So that's been a really nice thing, that the international demand for our work and our approach has meant that we're now going beyond our own borders, which is great.
Yeah, it's great, and there has to be that the trust factor as well. So to be present in the UK market for that long compared to a lot of the competitors, and then the type of business you've done, that just creates that trust factor itself, that people outside of UK are like, these guys, like, we want these guys. So I think that's awesome.
Yeah, and I mean, you raise a good point there. I think one of the things when people ask about Finnmark's success, I often reflect on is that Max and I have done everything in this business. When we started out, we've built saunas, we've picked and packed orders, we've built the website out, we've mopped the floors and cleaned the toilets and done everything. And we're not the best at any of it. We know what's required. We know how much hard work is required to do a job right. And it means that when we employ people, and we employ people to generally be better than us, which in many cases isn't hard, we do it with the understanding that we can relate to what's difficult in their job, or they can come to us with questions, concerns, issues, and be able to support them rather than not engage with it. You can say, oh yeah, I remember when I was involved in the sales aspect, actually that was quite frustrating, or that system didn't work as well as it should. Let's focus on resolving these issues, and maybe we can do it like this. Or one of the things that I think is culturally in the company, everyone is really motivated, and that rubs off not only internally on other team members, but on the people that we deal with. And I think we're not the cheapest sauna company out there, in part because we do reinvest so much in all these other areas, in sponsoring events, obviously sponsoring the World Sauna Forum, which we're very passionate about, sponsoring UK Sauna Summit, Aufguss Championships, and going to these international events. But people come to us because we take their safety and their best interests really seriously, and B, because the the level of support that's there is, there's plenty of companies out there that stack them high, sell them cheap. But when you have an issue, they don't understand the product. They don't understand really what, to them, it could be a fridge, it could be a mobile phone. It could, they're just selling a box, and they don't have care or appreciation for those things. And, our whole journey for customers is much more consultative. It's making sure that they get the right product for them, for their needs, for their design aspirations, their budget requirements, also their usage requirements. It's got to look as best it can, it's got to work as best it can, and last as long as possible, and be fit for purpose for what they want it for. And I think that's that really sets us apart, and it certainly brings a lot of pleasure for me in the company to see that.
Talking about World Sauna Forum, so
Mm-hmm.
excited to have you, and we're so excited that you guys are sponsoring us. Thank you for that. I wanted
Well,
to ask, how many times have you participated at the World Sauna Forum?
we've been to every one except for the very first, and the very first, from what I gather, was more of an intimate gathering. It was very much mainland Finland. As sauna from Finland and the World Sauna Forum was really emerging as something, we don't know exactly, probably 2018 was 2017 or 2018 was our first World Sauna Forum. So the second ever World Sauna Forum, and we saw all this stuff going on online, and we said, we reached out and we said, firstly, we'd love to be members. We're big advocates for a wide array of Finnish sauna manufacturers, and we really believe in the quality, the durability of the authentic Finnish products. So can we be members? And thankfully, Karita said yes, and we became the first international members of Sauna from Finland, which was a great honor. And then we attended the World Sauna Forum, and year on year, we've just watched it, just like we've seen the UK sauna culture grow and expand. The World Sauna Forum has just, taken on this life of its own. We have lots of familiar faces, so people we've seen year on year, and it's a great way to reconnect with a lot of those guys because they're all really busy like we are. So, a year goes by and you go, oh wow, I can't believe it's been a year since we've last sat down and chatted. I was awarded the Sauna Ambassador Award just before COVID, which is an honorary title that Sauna from Finland and the World Sauna Forum give to advocates for sauna internationally. And I was very proud to pass the baton to the very deserving Alan Yalisja from Kivia, who is based in Canada now and doing a fantastic job at really, spreading the good news. So yeah, looking forward to
Absolutely.
catching up with him.
And the sauna industry needs people like you and Alan, people that are just advocates about, to do it right. To do it right. And this is something that's like been coming up in this podcast as well with other guests. Is we just want to make sure some of the things are done right, and
Mm-hmm.
how we portray the Finnish sauna experience is the actual way that it is, and not something else. Because
Yeah.
and I think that's great, and that's really what's needed. Because when we have a new market that the Finnish sauna experience is entering, we would love for them to do it the way that people in Finland do. But I also understand that, like we've been talking about here, how the UK's market is kind of trying to find out what is our way of doing sauna, and I think that's an important part of it, that we understand that you can't create the lake view authentic Finnish log sauna in a place that's not authentic Finnish lakeside. So we're just trying to find the common ground, and then we need people like you and Alan to kind of navigate that in your country to see, like, okay, well, what can be done here so it's close to it as possible.
Yeah. And I think, the difficulty is there's a lot of people out there who have an opinion, and there's a lot of people out there who, can be quite divisive around what makes a really enjoyable sauna experience. And I think there are core principles to understand. And I think the best way to understand those is to look for consensus. So if you ask 100 Finns what the perfect sauna is, you'll get 100 different answers. And every single Finn that I've ever spoken to will tell you, just like in the UK, what's the best cake recipe or whatever. They might say, well, my grandma's. And I ask Finns, and they'll say, the way my grandfather told me is the right way, and everyone else is wrong. And every one of them is slightly different, very situational. Sometimes regionality plays a part. Sometimes what they're looking for in the space plays a part. But there is consensus. There is similarity between what they all say. And I think the important thing with this industry that we don't get bogged down in arguing or putting each other's ideas down, because that just hinders progress. And the whole evolution of Finnish sauna isn't a static thing. We've gone from essentially sweat lodges to savu saunas to wood burning stoves to electric heaters, and now there's gas powered heaters out there, and who knows what the future holds in that space. So there is always going to be innovation and test and trial and error. And we see it here. We have a little lab set up, and we toy around with the ventilation setup and try and work out, if you build it in this way and you ventilate it here, and what really gets you the optimum and what's best practice. And then understanding that, not everybody is going to have the perfect space. If you look at the UK market, we have a lot of people living in a small space, and so the cost per square meter or square foot of land is at a premium. For the same price as a UK townhouse in London, you could probably get a ranch in the United States. So people are tucking saunas into little cubby holes and having to be really dynamic with these very old Victorian buildings where none of the walls are straight and square and plumb. And so we often have a challenge in trying to get the most optimum ventilation setup. There's certain things we wouldn't compromise on. So we wouldn't we wouldn't say, well, just don't ventilate.
Right.
But we've had to come up with really unusual engineering solutions to be able to vent out of buildings that have no outside wall, and the property is what we call grade listed, which means it's protected by the government essentially because of
Mm.
its historic interest. So you can't just drill a hole in the wall where you want to. So I think what's really great about the World Sauna Forum is it's all of these people coming together to share their experiences, their challenges, and share their understanding of what works well and what gets an optimum experience, and kind of feed off each other. And like you say, talk about what works well in those industries. The Japanese adoption of sauna culture, it really is a million miles away from the Finnish way of going to sauna. But it doesn't mean that they won't benefit from designing the experience of the space, the way that you engage with sauna before, during, and after, and also the design aspects and mechanics of the sauna, that they can't create a more enjoyable experience. So we all come together, and again, another great thing about the World Sauna Forum is it is so many different groups of people from so many countries. I can't remember exactly last year, but it was
We had
all
28 last year. Yeah.
28 different countries, right? So
Yeah.
there was so many different nationalities, so many different cultures, and so much to share and learn from by being involved with that, whilst actively enjoying the quintessential experience, the experience that if you had unlimited land, unlimited access to nature, unlimited beauty in that space,
Hmm.
and that you could really do something special. I think it's just magical. It's just a great opportunity.
What would you say outside of this cultural aspect and getting to know and getting to meet with other enthusiasts? Is there something else that you are excited about and waiting for this year's World Sauna Forum?
Well, the World Sauna Forum and kind of something that I've touched on as we've been discussing this. They market it, or you guys market it, as the world's most relaxing business event, and that is it in a nutshell. It is, we're going there to experience something that we're really passionate about and that we really enjoy, and is very much a part of Max, mine, and the raft of our staff's daily, weekly, monthly routines. So we're going there to do something we love with like-minded individuals. It's all predicated on a relaxing experience, and learning by doing it. So it combines knowledge sharing and learning, which we're really, really passionate about. It combines networking and building business relationships, which again, we distribute for over 40 different companies from across Europe, many of whom we met at the World Sauna Forum. You get to try some of these truly unique sauna experiences, these things that if I was going on holiday to Finland, I probably wouldn't even know existed. So you get this unique access to these weird and wonderful sauna experiences, and certainly on the more wonderful side than weird and wonderful, but things that I continue to be amazed. Continue to go to these and get to try things I've never tried before and see things I've never seen before. I'm always excited to listen to some of the amazing speakers that are there and listen to their stories, and the amount that I've learned just through taking away tips, advice, what works well in certain markets, and that is information that I've taken with me to our commercial clients. So a lot of them will say, well, how do we make this as attractive as possible for people in terms of wanting to attend, but also it's a commercial endeavor. How do people monetize this thing, and what's the best way to do it in a way that the customer feels it makes sense? So these are all things that we're a new culture here, so we're taking inspiration from Finland and the commercial setups there, and going, do you know what, this was really great, the way that this was dealt with, and these aspects of the experience. So even if I wasn't in this industry, even if I didn't have a vested business interest in the sauna industry, I'd still enjoy it. And nothing says that more than the fact that after years and years of going to the World Sauna Forum, last year, our mother, Max and my mother, went, look, this just sounds really great. Like, you guys always sound like you have an amazing time. I want to come. And that when she proposed it, I was like,
I don't know.
this is not what I want my mother at this event. And she kept pushing it. And I just went, all right, you can come, but you have to be on your best behavior, right? It was, like,
don't tell no funny stories or nothing. Just
yeah. It was total role reversal. I'd spent, my childhood being told by them, look, fine, we'll bring you along, but you're on best behavior. And it was the whole thing was flipped. So it's like, all right, you can come, but you've got to be on best behavior. And actually, it was great. And she has no business interest in the sauna industry other than that she's supportive of Max and I and what we do as a career, and she had just had an amazing time. And she came back and she convinced my dad that he should go out. So I think this year the two of them are going to go out. And I said, fine, but this year you sort your you're on your own. You go have a good time, but you're on best behavior again. So I think it's one of those things where actually it's such a nice event, and if you're enthusiastic and passionate about the industry, even if you're not commercially interested in the space or commercially interested in the space right now, it's still a great place to go and learn and meet some of the people in them. I would say, if I look internationally at all of the other businesses that we work alongside in this space, the people who show up year on year to the World Sauna Forum are consistently some of the best names in those markets, in terms of people who genuinely take care, who really are really passionate about supporting their customers in the same way we are. So if you're even if you're just thinking about getting a sauna yourself or getting into it, it doesn't matter what country you're from. If you turn up there and you see that there's a couple of businesses there from your country, then they're probably is probably a good indicator that they're not just the box shifting companies that I mentioned before, but they are actually really interested on what's new, what's going on in the space, and care about it. And when you see businesses like Nordic from California in the United States, they trek half the world to come, and I think it really signals to everybody that these are companies that really take this seriously.
Yeah, and just like you said, it's not fluff when we say that the key players gather.
It's
That's
true.
exactly what it is.
It's true. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Anyone who's anyone is there.
right. Anyone who's anyone is there.
This is not your average event. This is the World Sauna Forum, a once-a-year gathering of global minds, innovators, and wellness seekers set against the stunning natural backdrop of Finland. You'll experience the rhythm of Finnish life. Calm, connected, and completely unforgettable. This is where strangers become collaborators. This isn't just a conference, it's the most inspiring business and lifestyle experience on the planet. Don't just hear about it, feel it. Live it. Join us in Finland next summer.
What is the one sauna experience that still makes you happy when you think of it?
That's such a tough question because, you know, I'm a firm believer, again, as I mentioned before, that different saunas for different times. And I can sit here just as we speak, and I'm visualizing so many amazing saunas. I probably couldn't pick one, but I would say there's certainly a top four or five. Um, some of the most amazing experiences, people who've never tried a Savu sauna before. I've been fortunate enough probably two or three times to have the privilege to get to enjoy this, ancient, beautiful, amazing experience. And I can quite, passionately say that the Savu saunas experiences that I've tried at the World Sauna Forum stick, very firmly in my memory. And last year, Karita, who with yourself obviously runs the World Sauna Forum and Sauna from Finland, puts together these extra trips. And often when you're at the World Sauna Forum, it's already a big trip. You've already kind of done this, and then there's these bolt-on other trips, and you sort of don't really, you just think, oh, I've just done World Sauna Forum. I don't really want to think about that. Those are some of the best ones because actually it's been a busy event. You've had some great sauna experiences, lots of people, lots of things going on, lots of networking and talking. And exactly after that, you want to disconnect a little bit, unwind a little bit. And last year, after the World Sauna Forum, Karita put on this trip to the art sauna west of Jyväskylä, and this is just a really beautiful sauna. I would have to say probably one of the most beautiful saunas I've ever seen. The way that it's designed, the thought that has gone into every aspect of that, the architectural beauty of that place, and as with many Finnish things, it's very understated. So when I was told about an art sauna, I thought, my mind went to this idea that you'd have jazz music playing and colorful, experimental, and I was thinking, oh, okay, this could be a bit unusual. That's not what it was at all. This is truly beautiful place. There's a Michelin star restaurant there, and it's just wonderful catching up with Karita after the event, and we're both sort of now relaxed, and there's no, she's not on high alert to make sure that the event's running smoothly and everything. Just having that ability to unwind and sit there and enjoy that experience, I think definitely goes in that top five.
That's awesome. And yeah, we have the art sauna as one of the experiences now for Friday after World Sauna Forum. And this year, because of this, like, I guess, feedback and experience that, okay, we're going to stay here still for a few days. And a lot of times it's like, okay, well, I would like to wind down, but what should I do? Where should I go outside of the places that we've visited during the World Sauna Forum? So this time we try to make sure that there's different types of experiences you can do. You can do peat treatment, the world's biggest smoke sauna. You can do the art sauna. There's different things you can experience outside, and these are really experiences that they're not necessary because they're not your everyday experience. It's not something that you necessarily want to do with hundreds of people. It's something that you want to go experience and be like, okay, so this is how this could be done, or this is how this has been done. That let me, you know, bring some of this back home, or let me, that this is something wonderful that I've never experienced before. And that's what we really try to bring at the World Sauna Forum as well. So even people like you who's been there forever and always, which we love, can always have something new to see and experience.
Yeah, and I'll certainly be tagging along to those as well. It's one of those things. I think, you know, your first thoughts are, can I really be bothered after this event? I'm tired. My social battery's drained. Just get yourself out of bed, go and do it. You won't regret it. I absolutely don't. It's an absolute highlight of my last year's trip. So I recommend sign yourself up for at least one of
Mhm.
those.
Is there something about the Finnish sauna experience itself that makes you happy about the experience, not just the building itself, but
Mhm.
the experience part?
I love nature, and I think a big part, a big part of what took me to Finland the first time was my love for the outdoors. And I think there's something really nice about, and that your body really craves about being in those natural places with really fresh air, with very much underpopulated or certainly not overpopulated. And very clean. I think something I really enjoy about the whole experience. One of the things we see a lot in the UK is families engaging with the sauna experience, and often this is in a typical heteronormative family with a mother and father. There's a mother figure who is maybe got kids that they're sort of starting to lose to technology, that they're maybe spending too much time on their phones or tablets. um, they might sit around the lounge together, but they're not talking, they're not communicating. The work-life balance, as in many Western economies now, makes it stressful and a strain for the parents. There's something really special about this sort of idea of bringing your family in to something that is relaxing, that is cleansing, that you can't take your technology to, and you can't be switched on. There's no symbols of prestige in the sauna, so unless you're maybe wearing a sauna hat or something, there's nothing really differentiating you from the next person. A lot of these families are really interested in being able to have some time where they can actually talk with their kids. And a lot of the conversations we have from a sauna design perspective is about sauna layouts that as a social space, but not always in the way that you think. So in my previous life, in my sort of a more outdoorsy career, um, one of the things that we used to talk about a lot was that when men need to have difficult conversations or want advice, they tend not to want to look each other in the eye because it's quite combative. And oftentimes, the reason you're looking someone else in the eye is because you might be negotiating, or, if we go to our hunter gatherer ancestors, you might be fighting them. Um, and having men sitting around the fire um, opens up your ability to chat because everybody's just staring at the fire, and some of the best, campfire conversations you have. And saunas is a similar thing. It's darker. Perhaps you're all looking in the same direction, maybe out of a window, maybe at the fire if you have a wood burning sauna heater. And these conversations just come out between families and allow them to connect much better. I think that's something we've seen in our own family here. So Max and I will go home. We've got a lovely wood-burning sauna that we built for our parents where they live, and we'll go to the sauna together and have, those family chats and talk about things that perhaps we wouldn't feel as comfortable or having that conversation around the dinner table or in the lounge. That's something that I think is really nice about the sauna experience and the Finnish sauna experience, that you can go somewhere and just disconnect from technology and reconnect with people in a proper, meaningful way.
If that wasn't personal enough, let's go a little bit more personal and go outside of the sauna experience. What in life makes you happy?
As I'm sure many people think about this, about what makes them happy. Why? Because they want to make themselves more happy or less unhappy, right? And you know, certainly my generation and some of the younger generations um, struggle with mental health issues, or they feel very disillusioned. We certainly see the changes politically going on between generations. Um, there's this strong feeling of disillusionment, and certainly when I speak to my friends or colleagues or individuals that might be having a tougher time, the thing that's made me realize what makes me happy is when I've tried to sort of impart wisdom or share advice, and made me reflect on those things. And I have to say, it's for me about having a sense of purpose and feeling like I make an active difference. And so, you know, being involved with Finnmark, where every day I do things and I can see that there's a tangible difference, not just to my life, but improving the quality of life of our employees and our customers. And I know that sounds maybe a little bit like a corporate marketing answer, but I genuinely mean it. The sense of wanting to get up every morning to come and push things further and essentially solve complex problems and work with amazing people. And we're very privileged in this industry to get to work with really amazing people. And if you think a lot of our customers from across the sort of wealth and education spectrum, but they've all got an amazing story, and they've all got an amazing story as to why they're interested in sauna. Some people went backpacking in Finland, and probably very similar to my story, and they've fallen in love with an experience. But we also get to work with, thankfully, for the type of industry we're in and the level of the market we work at and the project side of the business, we get to work with people who have truly exceptional life stories and have amazing careers. So that gives me my core life happiness, being able to share that. So I get to work with my wife, I get to work with my brother, two things that people would often say sound like a terrible idea, but we have a great relationship. The directors of the company that we have here are just amazing people. And it's great to see them progressing and support them pastorally with their own progression and learning about management and seeing firsthand them kind of sharing in that experience. That gives me a lot of happiness. And then some of the simple things, like I have a dog, which I love very much, and just going for a walk with him. And there was every year around this time, and for me it was last weekend because we had a bit of a warmer spell here in the UK. Just going out with the dog and just seeing, like the arrival of spring and going, this is just, it's just
This
things
is
like
life.
that yeah, it's just, it's those really appreciating the little things, and understanding that happiness is, you shouldn't ride it like emotional waves. You'll have tough days and you'll have great days. And I think certainly the lesson I've learned through 10 years of running this company is that it's all about the long term. And if things are overall positive, enjoy that. You might be having a tough day, but things are overall positive. You can be content in knowing that that things are moving in the right direction, that the people that matter appreciate you and you appreciate them. I think it's really vindicating, and I'm very lucky in that I consider myself a very happy person, and I know that a lot of people in this world struggle with that, and I can't say for sure whether it's because I do what I do for a living or have built this amazing culture here in the company and thrive off that, or whether it's to do with lifestyle factors like going to sauna and cold plunge regularly, because both of those things started at the same time. So I can't promise you that if you go to sauna and cold plunge regularly that you'll be happy all the time, or that if you start your own business you'll be happy all the time. But anecdotally, I started both at the same time. Yeah, I consider myself a very happy person.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Well, it's time to thank you, Jake, so much for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for talking to us. If you would like to see Jake and other people from Finnmark, please join us at the World Sauna Forum. To keep updated on the program, everything that's happening, make sure you click the link on our Instagram bio or here. If you're watching this from YouTube, there's a link.
Thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Happy with Heat podcast by Sauna from Finland. We hope you enjoyed the journey through warmth as much as we did. Stay tuned for more conversations with inspiring sauna enthusiasts from around the world. Until next time, stay happy with heat.